Tonight, an historic storm leaves thousands dead. The scope of the typhoon disaster is only now becoming clear. Seth Doan reports from the Philippines.
We don't need pity. We just need your help.
Barnaby Lowe rode out the storm's fierce approach. A major security failure was known before the healthcare website went live. Cheryl Atkinson breaks another story on how healthcare.gov went wrong. In a first, the Pope asks American Catholics what they think about contraception and divorce. Elaine Quijano reports. And on Veterans Day, the shortest war stories ever written. Michelle Miller on a project for troops to tell their truth in only 6 words.
Taliban bullet, Army hospital, found love.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening. Bodies in the streets, survivors cry for help. That is the story from the Philippines tonight, 4 days after Typhoon Haiyan. It was one of the worst storms ever observed on the earth. The U.S. Navy estimates sustained winds were 195 miles an hour, with gusts up to 235. That force pushed a surge of seawater estimated between 13 and 20 feet high over the land. This was Tacloban, a thriving city of more than 200,000 residents before the storm, and this is after. Nearly every building damaged or destroyed. Families scoured the ruins for anything they could use. This boy found just a few coins. This evening, the official death toll has passed 1,700, but that is sure to go much higher. There is just no way to tell how many have died. A mother wept for her son in a chapel that is now a morgue. Seth Doan in the Philippines continues our coverage.
A forest of flattened palm trees and waterlogged debris now litter this city of 220,000. After a massive wall of water crashed into Tacloban. The ferocious winds and surging tides sent homes out to sea and ships onto land. This distraught mother said she fought to hang on to her daughter when the water rushed ashore, but she couldn't hold on. I thought we were both going to drown, she said. Bloated corpses lie amid the rubble as residents help collect the dead. Thousands are still missing. Makeshift shelters are already overflowing. Caring for the living is a daunting challenge.
We don't need pity. We just need your help.
Survivors lined up desperate for food, water, and medicine. But debris-clogged streets and collapsed roads and bridges have limited access to the hardest-hit areas. It's difficult, this woman said. We are helpless like a newborn. There's no more food inside. U.S. Marines joined the rescue efforts today, packing up food aid. Brigadier General Paul Kennedy surveyed the devastation from the air.
Every building is either just significantly damaged or destroyed. You know, it's a 15 to 25-foot wave came across entire villages, and so everything's wiped out.
Philippine soldiers have taken up posts at the few businesses that survived the typhoon, but there have been many reports of looting. There's no power in most of the island, and many families still don't know whether their relatives survived. This airport terminal was turned into a delivery room when a woman went into labor this morning. She gave birth to a baby girl. But a military doctor treating them feared for the mother's health because he'd run out of antibiotics.
And Seth Doan is joining us now from Manila. Seth, the Philippine road network is bad on a good day. I wonder how much trouble relief workers are having getting into this devastated area.
Scott, aid workers are having a very, very difficult time. They say trips that should take 6 hours are taking 12 hours. We've heard stories of people having to go on motorcycles so that they can pick up the motorcycles and put them over trees that have fallen in these roadways. Manila here, the capital city, has been spared, and it's being used as a sort of base for those relief workers coming in. We're expecting to see hundreds of cargo planes leaving the capital over the next couple of days. Scott?
And Seth, you'll be on CBS This Morning tomorrow, and we'll have you back here tomorrow night. Seth Doan in the Philippines. Thank you, Seth. We have with us on the telephone Nicola Jones of the International Red Cross. She is in Tacloban, the town hardest hit. Can you tell us, Nicola, what have you seen there?
It is complete devastation. There is about 100% damage to buildings and shelter. There's debris everywhere.
Nicola, how are the survivors being cared for at this point?
Well, at the moment the situation here is really serious. There's not enough food or water at the moment. Some aid is supposed to be arriving today on some planes provided by the US, actually. Some aid is going to come in this afternoon because that's what people really need imminently. Also, obviously, then shelter is going to be the main thing. At the moment, people are sleeping either outside or in the kind of shells of any buildings that did manage to not completely collapse.
Is there any way to estimate the dead in the region that you know of?
I think there's different figures have been mentioned this week. Here, there's no confirmed numbers for here, but I think it's definitely fair to say it would be several thousand in the region.
Nicola Jones with the International Committee of the Red Cross speaking with us from Tacloban in the Philippines. Thank you, Nicola. We want to give you a sense now of the size of the typhoon. Here's a satellite view as it approached the Philippines, a chain of 7,000 islands. If the same storm had hit the east coast of the United States, it would have covered an area from Florida all the way to New England. The storm buzzsawed straight through the middle of the Philippines. CBS contributor Barnaby Lowe was in Leyte on assignment for Chinese television.
Typhoon Haiyan has made landfall over here.
And just as we finished this report, Typhoon Haiyan unleashed its full fury. Winds up to 190 miles an hour blew the rooftops off. Debris was flying in all directions. The ocean rose several feet in just a few minutes. Huge waves crashed into our hotel. Everyone rushed to the second floor.
We've been holed up in this hotel room for about 40 minutes now. We actually transferred from another hotel room, but that hotel room has been completely ripped off. And so we're here in this hotel room hoping that nothing bad would happen to us.
The rain didn't stop for hours. Then the ceiling in our room caved in, and we had to change rooms again. For 3 hours, we didn't know if we would survive. But nothing prepared us for what we saw when the storm finally moved on. The devastation was complete.
Scott, survivors here now face living without water or power. Aid has started to be delivered, but this is going to be a massive job, and getting around is still very difficult.
Barnaby Lowe reporting from Leyte. 90 U.S. Marines landed in the Philippines over the weekends, and right now several U.S. Navy ships are rushing to the area, including the aircraft carrier George Washington. The George Washington was on a port visit in Hong Kong. It's expected to arrive in 72 hours. There are more than 3 million Filipino Americans. Many of them here are anxious for news and eager to help. Here's Don Daler.
Desperate to track down her family in her hometown of Tacloban, Jackie Dewar turned to Facebook. That's how she found out what her 78-year-old mother did to save their lives.
My mother and my younger sister were holding on to a refrigerator, floating around in muck for 45 minutes. They put the young children inside the refrigerator.
They used it as a boat.
They used it as a boat.
Refrigerator.
Yes.
Her family survived but lost everything. She's collecting emergency supplies and raising money.
We direly need help. This is for real. This is hell.
Across America, people are doing what they can to help. From supplies donated at a car dealership in San Bruno, California, to cash donations in the part of Jersey City, New Jersey, known as Little Manila. Military veterans from LA are forming search and rescue teams. Matt Pilak is one of the leaders.
Tools, saws, flashlights, sleeping bags, you name it. And it's all got to go on our backs.
Call centers, including this one in Philadelphia, are putting family members in touch.
Her name is Heidi.
But thousands remain missing, including Jackie Doerr's little brother. He's the one you're most concerned about right now.
Right now, yes.
And his family.
And his family, yes.
Doer's son is on a plane to Manila right now with a load of supplies. He'll drive to Tacloban, but after hearing stories, Scott, of aid convoys being robbed on the way, Doer is afraid for his safety.
Don Daler, thank you, Don. Moving on to another important story. Tonight we have learned that the project manager in charge of building the federal healthcare website was apparently kept in the dark about serious failures in the website's security. Those failures could lead to identity theft among people buying insurance. The project manager testified to congressional investigators behind closed doors, but our Cheryl Atkinson has obtained the first look at a partial transcript of his testimony.
Henry Chow, Healthcare.gov's chief project manager at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, gave 9 hours of closed-door testimony to the House Oversight Committee in advance of this week's hearing. In excerpts we've obtained, Chow was asked about a memo that outlined important security risks discovered in the insurance system. Chow said he was unaware of this September 3rd government memo written by another senior official at CMS. It found 2 high-risk issues, which are redacted for security reasons. The memo said the threat and risk potential to the system is limitless. The memo shows CMS gave deadlines of mid-2014 and early 2015 to address them. But Chow testified he'd been told the opposite. What I recall is what the team told me is that there were no high findings. Chow testified security gaps could lead to identity theft, unauthorized access, and misrouted data. According to federal standards, high risk means the vulnerability could be expected to have a severe or catastrophic adverse effect on organizational operations, assets, or individuals. It was Chow who recommended it was safe to launch the website October 1st. When shown the security risk memo, Chow said, "I just want to say that I haven't seen this before." A Republican staff lawyer asked, "Do you find it surprising that you haven't seen this before?" Chow, "Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you be surprised if you were me?" He later added, "It is disturbing. I mean, I don't deny that this is a fairly non-standard way to proceed."
Late today, Health and Human Services told us the privacy and security of consumers' personal information are a top priority, and consumers can trust that their information is protected by stringent security standards. Scott, the author of the security memo, Tony Trinkle, retired from CMS last week. No reason was given.
Cheryl Atkinson in our Washington newsroom. Cheryl, thank you. Negotiations over Iran's nuclear program seemed to fall apart over the weekend. Iran appeared willing to trade a freeze on enrichment of uranium in exchange for an easing of international sanctions that have crippled its economy. Elizabeth Palmer covered the talks. And Liz, when we spoke on Friday, it looked like they were working on a deal. What happened?
We still don't know the details. Certainly they tried very hard. They were still talking until after midnight on Saturday. Today, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif is blaming infighting between America and its allies, whereas Secretary John Kerry said no, in the end it was the Iranians who walked away from a solid proposal. There are 3 likely deal-breaking issues, if you like. One is Iran's nuclear stockpile, what would be done with it. Secondly, a half-built reactor that's still under construction, which could produce plutonium, which could be turned into a bomb. And thirdly, something the U.S. says it will not do, recognize Iran's right to enrich uranium on its soil. In spite of the discord, though, there does seem to be a deal, at least within reach, because the negotiators are going back to Geneva on the 20th of November.
We'll keep following up. Liz Palmer in London. Thank you, Liz. In a first, the Pope is asking American Catholics for their opinion on divorce and contraception. And veterans speak volumes in just 6 words when the CBS Evening News continues. Pope Francis sent a message for Catholic bishops who were meeting in Baltimore today. He told them to make the church more welcoming. Francis wants the bishops to find out what Americans think about issues including same-sex marriage, divorce, and contraception. Here's Elaine Quijano.
The Vatican has taken the unprecedented step of asking bishops to survey their dioceses. Father James Martin is the editor of the Catholic magazine, America.
I think it's definitely a recognition that the teachings of the Church on these particular hot-button topics are not being received as the Vatican would like them to be received.
The 38-question survey asks, among other things, what questions do divorced and remarried people pose to the Church concerning the sacraments, religious rites that include communion, and is there a law in your country recognizing civil unions for people of the same sex and equating it in some way to marriage? Father Martin says the idea is to reconcile what's preached from the pulpit and the reality of life for people in the pews.
To someone who would say, the Catholic Church is not a democracy, you would say?
The Catholic Church is not an autocracy either, and it's not a dictatorship. And the Holy Spirit is at work through everybody. The great saints and martyrs, were often not popes and bishops. They were lay people, and they were people who were mothers and fathers and lawyers and doctors.
Espíritu Santo.
Amen. Pope Francis himself has said it is not necessary for the Church to focus only on issues such as abortion, same-sex marriage, and contraception. Catholic teaching is clear on those issues. Under church law, contraception is a sin, and divorced Catholics cannot be remarried in the Church. That's of great interest to Sylvia. She's a devout Catholic who got divorced 3 years ago. She asked us not to use her last name.
What's the message you think Rome is sending to people like you with this survey?
We care about you. I think that's what they're saying. It's like, we care about you. And if you're hurting, we want to help you.
The bishops have until January to gather responses, which will be sent to the Vatican ahead of a meeting next fall on Catholic family life. Scott, clergy we spoke with cautioned this survey should not be seen as a sign that church doctrine on those social issues will change.
Elaine, thanks very much. A new study out today found that gun violence in movies rated PG-13 has more than tripled since 1985. These movies are often more violent than R-rated movies. Critics say the rating system places too much emphasis on sexuality and not enough on violence. We'll be right back. The New York Stock Exchange held a moment of silence for Veterans Day today, and then the Dow hit another all-time high, closing up 21 points at 15,783. Americans all over the country honored the men and women who've served and sacrificed in the armed services. At Arlington National Cemetery, President Obama placed a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns and spoke of conflicts past and present.
By this time next year, the transition to Afghan-led security will be nearly complete. The longest war in American history will end.
There was a standing ovation for Richard Overton. At 107, the former soldier is believed to be the oldest living veteran of World War II. In New York, the military's first female four-star general led the parade. Ann Dunwoody retired last year after a 38-year career in the Army. And in Britain, a funeral was held for Harold Percival, who served in the Royal Air Force in World War II. He died last month at 99 with few friends or family. But when his story was picked up on the internet, hundreds turned out to honor him. War stories in 6 words, next. Finally tonight, the assignment was straightforward. Veterans were asked to describe war, the anguish, the boredom, the horror, in exactly 6 words. Michelle Miller tells us what happened next.
This one actually is one of my favorite ones on the website.
West Point graduates Mike Nemeth and Sean Wheelwright believe a lot can be said in just 6 words.
Responsibilities causing maturing beyond my years.
These are just a few of the 1,000 6-word war stories they've collected from combat veterans since June. Hearts and minds. I lost both. Taliban bullet, Army hospital, found love.
I think
It's their way of helping the war-weary begin their emotional recovery.
There's tragedy, there's sadness, there's, you have good memories, bad memories. So it's hard to package it in 6 words. And what comes out is gratifying. It's incredible what 6 words can say and how different each one is.
Many are about the gut-wrenching routine of war. Nicotine, caffeine, dead friends, no sleep. Others use humor. Where did I leave my pants? Or focus on more personal battles. Divorce, despair. Only God could repair.
What were your 6 words?
I never deployed. So my 6 words were never deployed, uncomfortable with thank yous.
But Wheelwright spent 15 months on the front lines in Iraq. He lost 14 classmates.
So my 6, currently,
so it changes.
Yes, it changes daily, I think.
You're avoiding this, I see.
I am. But, if I dig a little deeper, my 6 words are, through madness comes clarity and understanding.
Through madness.
Yes. War is absolute madness. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I don't know how any of us got through it. I really don't.
Sharing war's complexities in simple sentences. Michelle Miller, CBS News, Scottsdale, Arizona.
And that's the CBS Evening News this Veterans Day. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, good night.